Welcome back to the Fresh CrEd podcast, where we explore the people, the stories, and the experiences shaping the fresh produce industry and the careers behind it. I'm joined by PJ Cawley, a well-respected leader whose career includes significant time with Charlie's Produce, one of the premier independent produce companies in the country. Welcome, PJ.
Thanks for having me, Ed. Excited to join.
Well, I would say it's a lazy Friday afternoon in the produce industry, but I'm not sure that's ever the case, right? Mondays, Fridays, they're sort of all the same.
Well, here in Seattle, it's almost 1:30 in the afternoon. Most of the produce work is done for the week as far as purchasing and sales go, but it's probably another hour or two of action left before people start heading into their weekend.
Like I said, thanks for joining us. We definitely wanted to get on the horn with you. We've got a lot going on in the industry other than our weekly duties, obviously. We saw you last at the Swipe Expo, which is a great show. But coming up soon, here in the next couple of weeks, we've got Viva Fresh. Want to touch base with you on what you're looking forward to, as well as a little bit of what you've got going on in your life. For those that don't know, PJ's with Charlie's Produce. PJ, how long have you been with Charlie's?
Been with Charlie's for a little over 11 years at this point. It's been a lot of fun. We're an independent wholesale distributor, as many of you may or may not know. Service a lot of independent grocers, food service institutions, restaurants, people that don't have their own distribution center. Primarily fresh market produce, as a lot of listeners know, it's an ever-changing dynamic in fresh market produce. So it's a lot of fun. And every day is a little bit different for us as an independent. I've been fortunate to be a part of that for 11 years or so now.
Well, was that right out of college, I'm assuming, right?
You're giving me too much credit there. And Mason hasn't, as far as I can tell, Mason hasn't photoshopped the hair on top of my head like I asked. But no, I was in retail prior to wholesale. I started in a produce department for Fred Meyer, a regional chain up here that's part of Kroger now. They weren't when I started working there. It was my college job. That was back in the late 90s, back in the 1900s, which you may remember the previous century. And next thing you know, I finished school. I got promoted to be a produce manager. I liked it. I grew in that role. Changed companies to an independent in the Seattle area here. That was an organic retailer, PCC Natural Markets, actually the largest retail food co-op in the country. I spent 10 years there, originally as a produce manager, eventually taking on more centralized purchasing responsibilities for the, at the time, 9-store chain. Now it's, I believe, 12 or 13 stores in the greater Seattle area. And loved that job, loved interacting with the public, loved touching and feeling fresh fruits and vegetables every day. I was ready for a little broader reach, something outside of our region and something that was a little more impactful than only 10 stores or so. And Charlie's was good enough to give me that platform, and came on board as an organic buyer in 2015, pretty much bought all the organic fruit for the Seattle area. Moved on to manage our organic brand, Farmer's Own, as well as our Yumi brand, which is black seedless watermelon, primarily organic, as well as items that we import and what we call global initiatives that flow through all our distribution centers, which can be grower direct programs where we're contracting with growers to grow for us.
It never ceases to amaze me when I talk to people about their career, and I think about myself, and not that I've done anything to write home about, but I've been working for 32 years straight. Never did I imagine there were roles and functions that people I know today perform and have back then. In other words, why I thought of this was, you said you started at the store level. Obviously, very quickly you realized there were folks, in procurement functions, right? But how did the actual jump or leap happen? Did somebody approach you at the store level, or did you already know that's something you want to do and you went out and sought out the opportunity?
I had explored it a little bit in my 20s, getting into wholesale, and kind of, put it on the back burner. I was pretty happy with what I was doing on the store level and the natural progression I was making in retail. Kind of got to the point, where I didn't necessarily see a clear path to the larger platform with what I was doing. And, short answer, yes. Somebody from the wholesale sphere reached out to me because I had been pretty active in the local organic community on the sourcing end and driving volume on some items. I'd been fortunate enough to travel a little bit and be exposed to the places where the food I was selling was coming from, the products I was selling were coming from. And that really engaged me and connected me to the procurement end of things. It was really satisfying connecting the people and the produce they grow to end consumers that really enjoy it and value it and treat it for what it's worth. It's not easy work being a farmer and producing food for people. So there's a lot of satisfaction to be had in getting that product to people for a fair price that's sustainable to the grower.
Yeah, it's definitely something to be admired. I'm always pretty geeked up when I get to go out to different operations. It's the best part of my job. I've gotten to see a lot. Similarly to you, I've got to see a lot out in the field, and that's definitely the fun part of the job. There are some days where it's super hot or super cold that you could probably argue it'd be better to sit in an office, but definitely not as fulfilling, I guess. So you mentioned being out in the field. I mean, I'm assuming you've traveled all over the country, seen different areas, different growing regions, and even perhaps even different parts of the world. Your neck of the woods aside, what's your favorite area?
It's a tough one. I would say I've had some pretty magical experiences in Southwest Mexico.
Hmm.
Probably between Colima, Jalisco, and down in the Yucatan Peninsula. I've really seen some things that have affected me personally on a profound level, and just made me even more engaged in some of that product and the people that are producing it, and wanting to be a part of getting that into our food supply chain. That being said, I've got a lot of love for the Northwest up here. We're doing some great things. There's not many better places in the world to grow some of the row crops that we grow up here, as well as the, robust tree fruit industry we have in Eastern Washington with cherries, peaches, apples. I mean, apples is what Washington is known for. Peaches might be my favorite fruit. So that's a lot of instant gratification for me in the summertime, being able to just drive over the other side of the mountains and pick a fresh peach right off the tree. And oftentimes those are, varieties that a retailer doesn't want or doesn't really translate well to retail or food service these days. They're what you'd consider old world varieties that maybe don't have the shelf life, don't have the visual appeal of, what modern genetics have brought us. But boy, they sure taste good.
More of what's offered at the sort of the fruit stand level, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the fruit
Yeah.
stands and farmers markets. There's a place for everything, right? That's one of the more fun parts of this job too, is finding the right outlet for the different types of varieties and commodities.
Yeah, you just made me think of my trips to California during July, particularly for the food service show. I grew up in California, live in Texas. My family's from Texas, but I grew up in California, in Gilroy. A lot of fruit stands around there. So definitely I come up, typically I'll do a trip where I'm in the Central Valley and then move my way over to Monterey. So there's a lot of fruit stands on the way, and that time of year, the Bing cherries are in season. I'll grab a bag, pretty much eat the whole thing while I'm driving. But yeah, something you don't see a lot of here in Texas. We get a lot of great produce, but there's not a lot of fruit stand type vibe, I guess. I should have known. I really thought you were going to go that way with California. Obviously, a beautiful part of the country, but yeah, up where you're at, I can see where you'd probably, not only for personal reasons, but it is a beautiful part of the world.
Wouldn't have the fresh fruits and vegetables we have without California. And you know
Yeah,
that better than I do. I mean, that is the salad bowl of the US that you're talking about there in Gilroy, Salinas, Monterey, in that area, and just all the citrus, stone fruit, berries, great things that come out of California. We would not have the variety of fruits and vegetables available to us without California. It is by far the top producer of all the fresh market produce in the US. So it's always amazing to see that next.
and I think about. I have a lot of memories growing up out running around outside, and we lived out in a rural area, and we sort of lived like on a 3-acre island. To the north of us, we had, peppers being grown, and to the south, garlic and, different things all around. Everything's just so benign there. I mean, y- the juxtaposition to Texas where everything wants to bite you, eat you, sting you, hurt you. Even even the sandburrs and the weeds and everything in California seem to be almost edible. And maybe half of them are. It's unfortunately hard to appreciate when you don't know any different. I look back now and wish I would have appreciated it more, I wish I would have had the context to appreciate it more. But I do now when I visit. So, and every area has its pros and cons. Even down in South Texas where I live, it has its pros and cons.
I'm very much looking forward to being in South Texas myself in a few weeks or so down at Viva Fresh. I mean, all of the things you said are true. However, it's really nice getting into some 80-degree sun after a whole winter in Seattle where it's dark at 4:30 at night, and even this time of year, the temperatures are not warm. Nice being able to put on some shorts, hit the golf course, jump in a swimming pool. Those are all things that are appealing to me this time of year. So you're 100% right. You know what you know, and there's always some real appealing parts of other places.
Did you grow up in the Northwest, Pacific Northwest?
No, I grew up in Pennsylvania, other side of the country. At this point, I've been in Washington for close to 30 years. I think of myself as being an East Coast guy, but I've been on the West Coast for well over half my life. So
wow.
it's time to rethink that.
We're out in PA?
A couple hours north of Philadelphia in the beautiful Pocono Mountains. It's kind of a honeymoon and resort area in Northeast Pennsylvania. And it is beautiful. It's nice to visit. I don't know if I'd ever want to move back, but I sure do like going back and visiting. Funny anecdote about growing up there. I had some older cousins that lived in Texas while I was growing up in Pennsylvania, and I'd always get their hand-me-down clothes shipped up in boxes from my mom's sister, my aunt, as her boys were out growing them, my cousins. They'd send them up our way. So, as a 12-year-old in Pennsylvania, all of a sudden I get these new clothes and they were bootleg jeans, cowboy boots, button down plaid shirts with the mother of pearl buttons on them, a couple cowboy hats with feathers in them.
You're the cool kid on the block.
That was not very stylish in Northeast Pennsylvania at the time. Very stylish in Texas, but yeah, I had a tough time breaking that to my mom and aunt that I really don't want to wear these. I'm gonna get made fun of at school.
You just made me think of the Christmas Story scene where the aunt ships him the bunny suit. The bunny suit on.
75% there. Yeah, it wasn't all the way to bunny suit, but almost there.
That's hilarious. Well, you've kind of had a storybook life as it relates to where you've lived.
Yeah. I feel fortunate too, and like you said, Ed, sometimes you don't appreciate it when you're in the moment. I live in the suburbs now. As a kid, I grew up in the woods, could just run outside the door and there were acres and acres to explore. That's not the world I live in today, or my daughter lives in today, but there's really great things about where I am today and so much access to nature as well. So I don't regret it one bit. The Northwest is beautiful, as you said, and some of that's, times changing too, not just regions and access to acreage and forest.
So I was going to ask about hobbies. So you must be a big winter sports guy.
Done a lot of skiing in my life.
Yeah.
And it's, I have a family now. It's not something I can do as much as I did when I was younger, but yeah, absolutely. Trying to introduce my daughter to skiing and some of the things I've enjoyed over the years. Maybe golf will be next. That's, something else that I enjoy quite a bit, but sure you've experienced it in your life, your professional career, your family, you don't have the time for that stuff like you used to.
Starting to open up for me now, but yeah, there was a period. Now there's also a period where they get old enough to where they tag along, right? And that's where you really expose them. That's how golf for me was. I was pretty selfish when I was not recently, but first married. Spent a lot of time on the golf course and left the family at home, and then wised up some. My son started getting to the point where I could be trusted with him for long periods of time. He played competitively, and I enjoyed a lot of that, going to junior tournaments and all that stuff. So that all worked out. It was super stressful. Probably one of the most, if not the most stressful sport to watch as a parent spectator, because, you're on your own. It's not a team sport, obviously. And if you've ever played golf and lost your swing in the middle of the round and try to figure out and watch, your kid do that, it's pretty painful. I've been asked a couple times by folks, you know, that younger than me that have young kids and asked for my advice, like how to get them exposed to the game. I told them it's all about the snacks, man. If you make it fun, it's about snacks and driving the cart. Eventually, they get interested, start whacking a couple balls, and before you know it, they're playing with you. I'm actually playing next week. Not to make this about me, but I'm pretty pumped up about it. The Oaks course at TPC San Antonio is, I think it's ranked 8th on tour right now in difficulty by stroke average. It used to be higher up, but it's one of the tougher courses on tour. So, have you had a chance to play at all? Are you going to get the chance to warm up a little before you come out?
Might be at the driving range next week. My last round of golf was in Tucson at the Swipe event, which was a lot
Oh,
of
wow.
fun. I haven't been playing a lot, and the weather's not conducive to golf that much up here in the wintertime. You can certainly play in the winter on a nice day, but there's an element of luck involved too, unless you want to play when it's 42 degrees and raining, which I didn't mind that so much in my 20s. I'm not as interested in that type of round today as I was then.
Are you playing pickleball at Viva or golf?
I'm not. I'll
Or golf?
be golfing at
Okay.
Viva.
You could probably fit in both. Craig's heading up the pickleball, and I'm heading up the golf. And he made sure to schedule it to where he's going to try to do both. So consider it.
Well, then I might not do anything on Friday if I'm doing both pickleball and golf on Thursday. I might just be holed up in my hotel room. Right.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
You're riding around in a golf cart. I say that because I think I'm tough because I walk when I play. I found that I just play better when I walk. But speaking of Viva, anything in particular you're looking forward to or looking forward to finding out more about as you come to the event? Obviously, we always have challenges in the industry, right? Whether it's tariffs, USMCA, transportation, fuel right now is a big, challenge. Anything in particular that you're looking forward to maybe learning something more about or making some connections with folks that you haven't had a chance to yet?
Well, I've been going to Viva for a number of years now, Ed, and it's always been a really productive show for me personally. Get to see a lot of old friends there. There's a chance to make new friends. My view on events like that is, if I come back with one new vendor, one new product for my organization, or one new outlet for our existing products, it's been a successful and productive show. Viva provides a great platform for that. It's a good sized show, but it's intimate enough where you have the chance to have those one-on-one conversations. You're able to set up one-off meetings. I love the golf, and I purposely don't request being paired with anyone because I like the opportunity to, meet some new people, be exposed to parts of the business that I haven't seen before. You touched on one of the topics, tariffs. Right now, we're in the throes of figuring out if we're eligible for any refunds on tariffs. Nobody's figured it out yet. We don't know if we will or not, but it's, something we spent some money on last year, and it would be nice to be able to recoup some of that. I don't think there'll be any answers by the time we get to Viva, but Viva's provided a good platform for education on those topics as well. So, I'm interested to hear the chatter around that. Fuel, you're spot on. We've watched freight rates just shoot right up over the last week and a half, 2 weeks or so. And as we try to figure out our programs for the summertime, where our fuel costs going to be, how is that going to affect what we're doing? Is a truck in this lane going to cost $5,000 or is it going to cost $8,000? And that's a realistic component of the cost of goods that everybody's paying, really all the way down to the end consumer that's eating at a restaurant or filling their grocery cart with fresh produce.
Yeah, I don't think I even want to know what diesel is cost wise in the Pac Northwest. I drive a diesel pickup, and I know that a few weeks ago I was paying $3 a gallon for diesel, and about 4 or 5 days ago I filled up and it was $5 a gallon. I mean, that's a huge jump for here.
I think we're in the mid sixes. I
Whew.
think diesel, maybe not quite that high. It might be 6. I don't know. I think regular unleaded gas is, depending on where you're at. If you're in the city, it's over $5. If you're outside the city, you might be more around $5 or so. But I don't drive a car with a huge gas tank, and it cost me, I want to say, close to $90 to fill my gas tank the other day.
Oh my gosh.
Mm.
Well, hopefully it's not long term. and we figure out how to get that stabilized, because it's definitely not sustainable. Anything else personally you're looking forward to here in the near future? Obviously, there's a few trade shows still. Then you have summer. Anything coming up?
In my world, this is kind of where planning turns into execution this time of year. You know, we spend a lot of time in the winter crop planning, deciding how much we're going to grow, of what we're going to grow, where we're going to assign commitments, who's going to be growing what. And as we get into April and May, that's when we really start to see the results, all that detailed planning. Really, May is kind of when we start realizing it. So it's an exciting time of year. You know, really the commodities that are near and dear to me that I enjoy the most, late spring is kind of when they start coming off, whether that's melons, stone fruit, some of the, what I consider the fun and exciting instant gratification items. They're all right around the corner. It's a fun time of year.
I bet. That's awesome. I have got one question that's been on my mind that I have to ask. The P is for Patrick. What's the J for?
Joseph.
Patrick Joseph.
And the reason why I'm PJ to this day is I'm Patrick Joseph III. I had a dad and grandpa running around with the same name as me when I was a kid. And, you know, no different than probably what you've experienced in life. The only time the full name ever really comes out, it's usually because I'm in trouble.
That's a heck of a handle. I like that, man. Patrick Joseph. You're going to be Patrick Joseph to us. At least our favorite Patrick Joseph. Let's put it that way.
All right.
Thanks, PJ. We're going to see you here in a couple weeks. Can't wait. You're going to be joining us on the podcast. We're going to be watching your golf game, doing a little bit of recording out there. So looking forward to it.
Really happy to be a part of it. Thank you, Ed.
Thanks, PJ. Thanks, folks. We'll see you soon.